Hi, and welcome to this video of nPro. This video I will show you what is new in the new tool version and how you can use it best. Let's dive into it and let's have a look at the new graphical interface. So you will see that you have a project list here on the landing page, and you can create a new project if you click on the right button. And here you can select from different project types. So you can select a district, a building, or energy hub. A district would be buildings plus a heat network plus energy hub. The building, the single building, if you want to simulate energy system for a single building, you only have the load profiles and the usage zone of the building plus the energy hub. And the last option here is only the energy hub module. So if you have already your load profiles, then you can use this one to just dimension your technologies. So here we have a few other options. We can select from different heat networks. But this is only like a pre-selection, so you can change this after you create the profile, the project. Now I click on Create New Project. And the first page is here, the buildings. So this is a little bit new from the design. So we don't have the two modules, load profiles and energy hub. We only have one module where everything is integrated. So we have one project for a district, and this is then the buildings, the heat network, and the energy hub in one single project. So on the top, we have the building list that's similar to the first version. If I click on one of the buildings, we see that a lot of parameters changed actually. So we still have the building types that you can define. We can insert default values from the database as before, but now we get this preview what we are actually inserting into the form. We can define space heating, domestic hot water demands. And what is new here is the supply and return temperature. So we have to define what is the supply temperature of space heating demand. So if the heat network is at 70 degrees Celsius and the supply temperature is at 65 degrees Celsius, we can directly use the heat from the network to cover the heat demands. If this would be like 80 degrees Celsius in a very old building, maybe the simulation would say, oh, we need a decentral heat pump, and would integrate this in the building. We can calculate the load profiles with an hourly resolution as before. And then here on the bottom, we have quite a few changes. So if you have a low temperature network, like a low X network, or maybe a 5th generation district heating and cooling network, you can select the heat pump in the building. In every building, there will be a heat pump then. And select the heat source for the heat pump. So normally that would be the heat network. So you are boosting the temperature, you are increasing the temperature from the network so that it can cover the demands, the domestic hot water and the space heating demands. You can also calculate an ambient air source heat pump. So if you don't want to connect the building with the heat network, you can also have different options here to decentrally cover the heat demands. For the COP, we have different options. We can use a constant COP as in the first version. We can also use Carnot efficiency. And we can use product data. So if you select one of the predefined heat pumps, then this will be taken into account when the COP is calculated. But we can also define our own heat pump. So if you have a specific model in mind, then you can input the data sheet values for the COP in this table, and then this will be used to calculate the COP. Another difference is that we have cost parameters for the buildings. So if we have a heat pump, for example, in the building, then we could define the cost for the heat pump, and all the costs are summed up for the economic analysis. So the cost for the buildings, the cost for the heat network, and the cost for the energy hub. We have here the overview of the first results. So what's the space heating demand, what's the domestic hot water demand of all buildings, and how much heat is then coming from the heat network to cover those demands. We can still download all the profiles as an Excel sheet or also CSV file, all the demand profiles with an hourly resolution. On the next page, we have the heat network. Here we also have quite a few changes. So you can first define the network temperature. Could be a constant value, but it could also be a sliding network temperature. If you have a higher network temperature in the winter, then you can define this here. If you have a very specific temperature profile, you can also upload your own temperature profile. Second option, very important, heat losses. So the first version, we only had the possibility to put a loss factor here, but here we can now also define network sections and calculate the losses in more detail. So you can define the material of the pipes, the diameter, the insulation standard, and then have a very accurate estimation of the heat network losses. So here on the bottom, we have then again the table, the result table, then with the heat losses and the total energy demands, the total heat demand that needs to be covered at the energy hub. On the next page, we have then the configuration for the energy hub. So here the heat demand describes the heat demand of the network. The whole technology structure changed quite a bit in this new version. So we have the normal technologies, CHP, the boiler, of course, but we also have multiple more technologies. We have the heating and cooling source here. Can be only heat or only cooling or both, depending on what the source can provide. Power to heat, of course, but also PVT, for example, and more options also in the geothermal technologies. One more thing, if you go to boiler, for example, and also all of the heat generation units, you can go into the settings, and there you find operation restrictions, and that's a new feature. So if you want to define when is the boiler really operated, then you can put some additional constraints here and say, for example, it's only operated when the ambient air temperature is above 2 degrees Celsius, for example, for heat pump. This could be a good option. And here in the center, you can define how much heat is generated by this technology. So if you want to say, okay, maybe only the gas boiler only covers like 10% of the heat demand, then you could enter this constraint here, and then the optimization would find the optimal energy system based on that the boiler cannot cover more than 10% of the heat demand. On the bottom, then we can click on size technologies. So you can, in this version, also you can normally use the minimal costs for the objective function, so for the target of the optimization, but you can also choose different optimization targets. So if you want to minimize CO2 emissions, for example, this is possible, or if you want to minimize the electricity that you import from the electricity grid, then you can choose the last option here. Here you get system design. That's pretty similar to the version before. And then you get the system simulation, where we have the hourly resolution, and then we see, okay, how are the technologies operated. And here on the right-hand side, on the top, you can see that you can not only visualize the total annual energy flows, but also go into the details and see, okay, how does it look in summer, for example, or maybe how does it look like in January, for example. On the bottom, you can create some more plots, for example, a heat balance where you see, okay, the heat demand in the negative direction and in the positive direction, the heat generation units. You can change those plots and, for example, take out the geothermal probes here and maybe add some other time series, the electricity generation for PV. And you can also not only have monthly values, but also the complete hourly profile with an hourly resolution. If we click on summary, we have the most important KPIs. and also some new plots which visualize then these figures. We can still download the time series of the simulation with an hourly resolution as an Excel sheet. That's possible. And if we go down, then we find a button, go to result page. And there we find all the economic results, for example. If I click on economic results, we find all the cost shares and some graphics and the cash flow table to see what are the costs of the energy system. And here we see, for example, we have costs for the heat network and also costs for the energy hub. Then I would like to show one more feature. We can do a scenario comparison. So if you want to compare this solution with another scenario, then we click here on scenario comparison, say duplicate current scenario. And now here on the overview of the projects, we see that we have a second scenario now. And I open this one now. This is like a copy of the first scenario, but we can now change something, and we could now add a building, for example, or maybe change the network or the network temperatures. And in this example, I will maybe just take out the boiler and activate the electric heater and see how will the energy system configuration change. Let's click on size technologies. And then we see, okay, the electric heater is covering the peak load. And then we do the simulation for the system. And then we will click on go to result page. And now we can do the comparison. I will click on scenario comparison and say, okay, let's compare this scenario with the other scenario. And click on OK. And then we have now here two scenarios in one graph, the CO2 emissions on the x-axis and the costs on the y-axis, for example. But we have some additional graphs as well, like the energy import for both scenarios and all the the most important KPIs of the system. We also have the economic results in the comparison, so we can directly compare both solutions with each other and see what's the more profitable solution. I would like to show one more thing. If you go to the user settings, you can now say that you want to maybe edit the color scheme of the plots. So if you would like to use the company colors, the corporate design of your company, then you can change the colors here, and this will change the colors in all of the plots. So you can more easily use them for reports or presentations. What you can also do is activate or deactivate the option Save Projects automatically. So by default, it's in the new version that after each calculation step, the project is saved on the server. But sometimes maybe you don't want to do this, then you can disable this option, and then you have to manually click on the Save button and to save the project. All right. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that gave you some insights what is new in the new version. If you have some questions left, then please comment under the video and we will try to answer them. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention and see you in the next video.